The Spark of War. New Athens, Human Colony, Galactic Year 3421. Dr. Emily Carter never thought she would witness war firsthand, let alone become its catalyst. The colony of New Athens, located on the outer fringes of human space, had long been a peaceful settlement, an agricultural and research hub with minimal military presence. The Galactic Empire, an interstellar juggernaut that spanned thousands of worlds, had always loomed in the distance, but treaties kept the uneasy peace. Until now, the attack came without warning. Imperial dropships pierced through the sky, their black holes blocking out the twin suns. The colony's meager defense grid barely fired before it was obliterated in a cascade of plasma fire. The streets, once filled with scientists, farmers, and children, became a war zone within minutes. Emily, 7 months pregnant, had been in the colony's central research facility when the alarms blared. A researcher specializing in bioengineering, she had little reason to fear war. Until now. She clutched her stomach, her heart hammering as she watched from a reinforced window as armored Imperial soldiers marched through the streets, gunning down anyone who resisted. Her husband, Daniel Carter, a former soldier-turned-security chief, burst into the lab, his face set in grim determination. "We have to go now," he ordered, grabbing her arm. She began, but the sound of approaching boots silenced her. The doors burst open, and 3 Imperial soldiers stormed in, their weapons raised. Their leader, a lieutenant in dark silver armor, stepped forward. "This facility is now under Imperial control," he announced, his voice cold and mechanical. "All personnel are to be detained for processing." Daniel positioned himself between Emily and the soldiers, his hand hovering over his sidearm. "This is a violation of the Terran Imperial Treaty," Emily said, her voice steady despite the fear twisting in her gut. The lieutenant laughed. "Your treaties mean nothing. The Empire does as it pleases." Then he raised his weapon and fired. Daniel crumpled to the ground, a smoking hole in his chest. Emily screamed, falling to her knees beside him, her hands shaking as she touched his lifeless face. The soldiers advanced. "Resisting Imperial authority is punishable by death," one of them sneered. Then they turned their weapons on Emily. A sharp pain exploded in her side as the first blast hit her. She collapsed, clutching her belly, as another shot seared across her arm. The world blurred, her vision darkening as the sounds of gunfire and screams faded into the distance. Earth, 2 days later. The footage of Emily's assault, captured by a desperate colonist body cam, spread across Earth like wildfire. The entire world watched as an unarmed pregnant woman was gunned down by Imperial troops, her husband murdered before her eyes. The United Nations Space Command, UNSC, convened in an emergency session. The chamber, normally filled with political posturing, was deathly silent as the video played on the main screen. The final moments, the soldiers' mocking laughter, the shots fired, Emily's agonized scream, left the room in stunned horror. Admiral Jonathan Reyes, the highest-ranking officer in Earth's defense forces, stood before the council, his fists clenched. "This is an act of war," he said, his voice filled with cold fury. "The Empire believes we are weak, that they can slaughter our people without consequence. We must prove them wrong." President Helen Vasquez, leader of the Terran Coalition, exhaled deeply. "The Empire outnumbers us 100 to 1. A war against them would mean a war for our survival," Reyes interrupted. "They've already started it. We either fight or we die." Across Earth, the people had already made their decision. Protests erupted, demanding justice. Military recruitment centers were overwhelmed with volunteers. Factories switched overnight to wartime production. Humanity had spent decades preparing for the possibility of war. But now, it was no longer a possibility. It was inevitable. The war begins. On her hospital bed, Emily Carter awoke, pain racking her body. She reached down, her breath catching. Her child was gone. A doctor stood beside her, sorrow in his eyes. "I'm sorry," he said. "We did everything we could." Something inside Emily broke. Grief and rage fused into something new, something sharper. A nurse hesitated before handing her a datapad. "You should see this." Emily watched the declaration unfold in real time. On every screen, President Vasquez stood before the world. "The Galactic Empire has committed an unforgivable crime against one of our own. Today, humanity unites not in fear, but in vengeance. We will not bow. We will not break. The Empire has declared war on us." She took a deep breath. "We declare war on them." The world erupted in cheers. Emily clenched the datapad, her grief turning to resolve. If the Empire thought humanity was weak, they were about to learn just how wrong they were. Humanity strikes back. Epsilon Eridani System, the first strike. The war began not with grand speeches, but with blood and fire. The Galactic Empire, confident in its supremacy, dismissed Earth's declaration of war as the desperate cries of an inferior species. They believed humanity would surrender once faced with overwhelming force. They were wrong. Admiral Jonathan Reyes stood on the bridge of the TSS Warspite, Earth's most advanced battleship, as the fleet prepared for its first major offensive. Their target, an Imperial supply depot in the Epsilon Eridani system, a critical waypoint for the enemy's invasion forces. "The Empire expects us to defend, not attack," Reyes said, addressing his officers. "We're about to show them how wrong they are." The fleet moved in silence, running on low emissions to evade detection. The Black Suns, Earth's elite special forces, had already infiltrated the station days before, planting EMP charges across key installations. As the Imperial forces went about their routine operations, the charges detonated. Power across the station flickered and died. In that instant, humanity struck. The Warspite led the charge, railguns spitting hypersonic slugs that shredded enemy cruisers before they could react. Orbital drop pods rained down from the sky, delivering shock troops straight into the heart of the station. Lieutenant Marcus Voss, leader of the Black Suns, led his team through the smoke-filled corridors. His orders were simple: seize control, leave no survivors. They moved with brutal efficiency. The Empire's soldiers, accustomed to fighting against lesser foes, struggled against humanity's raw aggression. Close-quarters combat favored the heavily armored Earth forces, who cut through enemy lines like a scythe through wheat. Within an hour, the station fell. The first battle of the war ended in total victory for humanity. The Earthborn strategy. The Empire's response was swift. Within days, they launched a counteroffensive, sending a fleet twice the size of Earth's to crush the rebellion before it could gain momentum. But humanity had no intention of fighting a conventional war. Instead of engaging in direct battles, Earth forces employed a new strategy, the Earthborn Doctrine. Unlike the rigid formations of the Empire, humanity embraced adaptability, deception, and technology. Hit-and-run raids, cyberwarfare, ambushes in asteroid fields. The Empire's supply lines began to collapse. Warp lanes, once safe, became death traps, filled with stealth mines and cloaked drones. Imperial command ships found their communications disrupted, their AIs infected with Terran viruses that turned their own weapons against them. For the first time in its long history, the Empire was losing to a lesser power. Emily Carter's revenge. Far from the front lines, in a hidden research facility beneath the lunar defense grid, Emily Carter worked tirelessly. Her body still bore the scars of the Empire's assault, but she refused to rest. She had lost her child, her husband, and her peace. But she would not lose the war. She and her team developed Project Revenant, an experimental AI-human hybrid battleship designed to react faster than any Imperial warship. Unlike traditional vessels, these ships could anticipate enemy movements, adapt mid-battle, and execute maneuvers no Imperial officer would expect. When the first Revenant-class destroyer, TSS Vengeance, was deployed, it single-handedly annihilated an entire Imperial task force in the Orion sector. Emily watched the battle unfold from the control room, her hands trembling. The Empire had taken everything from her. Now, she was taking everything from them. The Empire strikes back. But the Empire would not fall easily. Enraged by their losses, they escalated their tactics. Entire human colonies were glassed, bombarded until only ashes remained. The once thriving settlements on Mars Phobos Station and Europa Base were wiped out in a matter of hours. Millions died. The news sent shockwaves through Earth. People wept. Some despaired. But most were only fueled by rage. Admiral Reyes stood before the War Council, his face hard as steel. "They think fear will break us," he said. "But we are human, and humans don't break." The war had only begun, and humanity had only just started fighting back. The turning tide. Titan's shipyards, Saturn's moon, Sol system. The war had raged for 6 months. The Galactic Empire, once dismissive of humanity, now recognized them as a real threat. The Emperor himself had declared that Earth would be purged from existence, its people enslaved or exterminated. But humanity refused to kneel. The Titan shipyards, the largest naval production facility in human space, became the heart of the war effort. Massive dry docks stretched across the moon's surface, assembling Revenant-class battleships and fleets of stealth cruisers. It was a symbol of defiance, and the Empire wanted it destroyed. When Imperial scouts discovered its location, the enemy wasted no time. A full invasion fleet dropped out of warp on the edge of the Saturn system. Over 100 capital ships moving in formation, escorted by thousands of fighters. Their mission? Wipe Titan off the map. The Battle of Titan. Alarms blared across the system as Earth's forces scrambled to respond. Admiral Jonathan Reyes stood on the bridge of the TSS Warspite, watching enemy formations appear on the holomap. "They brought everything," his XO muttered. "Then we'll take everything from them," Reyes replied. The battle erupted before the Empire even reached orbit. Stealth torpedo boats, hidden among Saturn's rings, unleashed a devastating ambush, crippling the lead Imperial battleships. Orbital defense platforms powered up, unleashing railgun fire at hypersonic speeds, tearing through the enemy's shields. But the Empire's numbers were overwhelming. As the first waves of Imperial dreadnoughts entered Titan's orbit, they opened fire with planetary bombardment cannons, sending devastating plasma storms toward the surface. Titan's shield arrays barely held. Humanity's fleet was outnumbered 3-1, but what they lacked in numbers, they made up for in strategy. Project Revenant had given them an edge. AI-assisted battleships moved faster, anticipated enemy movements, and executed battle plans with inhuman precision. Titan holds the line. On the ground, Commander Sarah Briggs led the defense forces as Imperial shock troopers launched their assault. The ice-covered surface of Titan turned into a hellscape of fire and plasma, as human Marines fought in the trenches, holding the shipyards with desperate determination. Briggs barked orders into her comm. No retreat, no surrender. Titan holds, or humanity dies. With each passing hour, losses mounted. But humanity refused to break. Then, in the darkest moment of the battle, when all seemed lost, Project Revenant's fleet arrived. The TSS Vengeance, the most advanced warship ever built, led a counteroffensive, hacking into Imperial battle networks, scrambling their formations. With their communications in disarray, the Empire's once disciplined fleet fell into chaos. Humanity pushed back. One by one, the massive Imperial warships fell to Earth's guns, their wreckage burning in Saturn's orbit. The Empire had underestimated them again. By the time the battle ended, more than half of the enemy fleet was destroyed, and the rest retreated into deep space. Titan still stood. Cracks in the Empire. News of the Titan debacle spread across the Empire. The illusion of their invincibility was shattered. Even among their own ranks, doubt began to grow. Admiral Varian Kor, a high-ranking Imperial officer, watched the reports in silence. He had fought for the Empire for decades, believing in its strength. But now, something deep inside him shifted. The humans should have been crushed. Instead, they had fought like demons, with a fire the Empire had long since lost. Kor clenched his fists. The Emperor would demand another offensive, another extermination campaign. But he wasn't sure the Empire could win. For the first time in his life, he doubted his masters. The invasion of Xiphos Prime. Earth refused to remain on the defensive. Fresh from their victory, humanity planned its boldest move yet, an invasion of an Imperial core world. The target, Xiphos Prime, a heavily fortified command planet, critical to the Empire's war machine. It was a suicide mission, but humanity had already proven one thing. They never fought by the Empire's rules, and they never, ever backed down. Wrath of Humanity. Xiphos Prime, the heart of the Empire. The war had reached a tipping point. Titan had held, the Empire had been bloodied, and humanity had proven that they would not break. But Admiral Jonathan Reyes knew that defense alone was not enough. If Earth was to survive, the Empire had to fall, and that began with Xiphos Prime. The planet was a fortress world, a key military command hub deep in Imperial space. Its defenses were thought to be impenetrable, protected by planetary shields, orbital cannons, and 3 full Imperial fleets. No sane commander would attack it, but humanity had never fought by the Empire's rules. The invasion begins. The assault on Xiphos Prime was launched with a deception campaign. Using AI-driven cyberwarfare, Project Revenant infiltrated the Imperial battle network, planting false reports of a human offensive in a distant system. The Empire diverted key forces away, leaving Xiphos weaker than usual. Then, the real strike began. Humanity's largest fleet in history, over 200 warships, dropped out of warp above Xiphos Prime. TSS Warspite led the charge, railguns and plasma cannons lighting up the void as human forces descended like fire from the heavens. The battle above Xiphos. Admiral Reyes stood on the Warspite's bridge, eyes locked on the battlefield. The Empire still outnumbered them, but numbers no longer guaranteed victory. Bring the Revenant ships online, Reyes ordered. The AI-assisted battleships executed impossible maneuvers, dodging enemy fire, predicting Imperial formations before they even moved. Electronic warfare shut down enemy shields, leaving massive dreadnoughts vulnerable to precision strikes. The Empire fought back with everything they had. Human ships exploded into fireballs, hulls torn apart by relentless Imperial counterattacks. The void was filled with burning wreckage, but humanity kept pushing forward. The ground assault. While the battle raged in orbit, shock troops and the Black Sun's special forces landed on the surface, launching a brutal urban war against Imperial defenders. Commander Sarah Briggs, still recovering from wounds sustained on Titan, led the charge. Tanks rolled through ruined streets. Exosuit-clad soldiers cleared Imperial bunkers with brutal efficiency. Every Imperial who surrendered was given a choice: help humanity overthrow the Empire or die with it. Many chose to switch sides, but the battle was far from over. The Empire unleashed its last weapon, a planetary sterilization protocol, ordering a full-scale, scorched earth strategy to deny humanity victory. If they could not hold Xiphos, they would destroy it. Massive orbital cannons turned toward the surface, preparing to wipe out every living being on the planet, including their own people. Emily Carter's final move. In the heart of the battle, Emily Carter made her move. She had not come to Xiphos Prime for revenge alone. She had come to end the war. From a hidden base beneath Titan, she uploaded Project Revenant's full AI system into the Imperial network. The virus hijacked the Empire's defense grid, shutting down the orbital cannons before they could fire. Then, she sent a single transmission directly to the Emperor himself. Your Empire dies today. The fall of Xiphos Prime. With their defenses down and command in disarray, the Imperial forces collapsed. Admiral Varian Kor, the Imperial officer who had begun to doubt the war, made his choice. He turned his fleet against his own leaders, defecting to humanity. The Emperor's palace, once a symbol of power, was stormed by human marines. The war was over. Aftermath, humanity's rise. With Xiphos Prime taken, the Empire fractured. Dozens of client worlds rebelled, inspired by humanity's defiance. Admiral Reyes stood on the steps of the Imperial Senate, addressing the galaxy. We did not seek this war, but we did not run from it either. Let this be the last time any empire believes humanity is weak. Emily Carter scarred but unbroken, watched from the shadows. She had lost everything, but she had won humanity's future, and the galaxy would never threaten Earth again.